just a moment here. All right, let's just double check our sound real quick. Hello.
Hello.
Lovely.
Okay. The key question is our sound broadcasting?
I know. Well, that's what I was just double checking. I'm pretty sure it is. Here, let me give it a second. Yes, we are. All right.
Sweet.
All right, everybody. Welcome to yet another lovely week and episode or show or live cast, whatever we call this, of My Business World Live. If you have part of the show here is we definitely want to hear your challenges and struggles and issues and anything else that's going on. So if you have questions, comments, anything of that nature, feel free to throw us a line, comment on Facebook. That's primarily where we're doing it. I think we are also live on YouTube, but Facebook is where we're going to at least monitor some comments. And Tom's already got a comment in there for us. Excellent. Thanks, Tom. And we'll in fact, I will put that in there real quick. Just a minute. So it's there for anyone else that joins as we go here. All right. Perfect. Now we are set, my friend. Well, let's I got to be careful not to watch the stream too closely because it's delayed and it's throwing me off. What how's your week, man?
Real good, man. Not bad. I thought it was a pretty good week. I started the week on vacation. I'm going camping again this weekend, so I think it's a pretty good week so far.
You're a camping machine, man.
That's right, man.
Where are you guys going this weekend?
Um,
If you want to reveal that,
Gosh,
maybe.
we're going to Deer Creek Reservoir
Oh,
up by
excellent.
Heber.
Excellent.
So not too far, actually. It's only like a 50-minute drive.
Perfect. That's the kind of mini camping weekend vacations I like anyway. Keep things nice and
Yeah.
close, easy. Awesome. Well, all right, man. Well, so today, a couple of things that we wanted to kind of dive into. Of course, beyond any questions anyone has, feel free to post those again, as I mentioned, and we'll definitely touch on a few things. But we have run into a couple of things that have come up this week with our clients that we wanted to kind of share and talk about, and just kind of dive into it from there. A little bit about some news and feedback, and yeah, we'll see where the wind blows and where it takes us today. Sound good?
That sounds good.
Cool. So something that that's come up a couple of times for me this week and working with various clients has been around. We've been talking about their like marketing and sales processes, and so I wanted to bring this up as it was definitely a challenge that I feel like a lot of, especially in the small business space, a lot of businesses really struggle with. Is there's a missing link between sales and marketing for many businesses. Um, in fact, depending on the industry, some like for instance, I feel like sales is almost non-existent as a at least as a defined strategic process. There's many industries and spaces where it's like, yeah, they talk about marketing and then they talk about delivery, right? I feel like the medical space is that way pretty heavily. Would you agree?
Absolutely.
I mean, it's basically you've got marketing, sure, they do all sorts of things, ads and you name it, and talk about that all the time. But there is no transition. It's like you're marketed to, and now you're a patient, And I feel like
Yep.
other spaces tend to suffer from that a little bit as well. Um, but the reality, at least as I've seen it, is there's always, well, first of all, there is always a sales process or sales stage, whether you know it or not, right? As a business owner, it's happening, and there is a sales stage, and everybody has to kind of pass through that phase. It's like passing through that phase of the relationship, whether you're conscious of it going on or not. And I feel like that's where it often breaks down, right? Because we're not really conscious of that move, that transition. So we're interested, we want to explore more and learn and whatnot, and so then we decide to take whatever step is proposed to us or is given to us, call this office or do something online or you name it. And then from there, it's just kind of like, all right, well, we can deliver the service. Here you go. And I just wanted to discuss that a little bit and see, explore this idea of how we ought to, especially in industries that it isn't as typical, but how we can more appropriately bridge that gap and think about this sales component, right?
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
tell me, I'll just ask you and kind of kick this off, put you on the spot that way. Well, and let's just start with that example a little bit. So, how do you feel this fits in with, say, someone like a medical professional of some sort? How do you typically see this, or what do you see like that might work, or some adjustments that can be made and things of that nature to kind of think differently there?
Well, I think the biggest thing is for a lot of medical providers, especially medical providers don't see themselves as salespeople ever. Um, and I think it's traditionally, depending on the type of medical provider that you work with, some of them are used to not really having to sell
Yeah.
because in the past it was like people came in for a service, their insurance covers it, and away we go. But today's healthcare is a little bit different. There are a lot of different alternative therapies, a lot of different alternative options that people are wanting to go towards that are less invasive, less addictive, those kinds of things. And those typically are not covered by insurance. And so then people are forced to go cash. And I think for especially medical providers who are used to insurance, it's really hard to make that switch. So the first thing is like they don't see themselves as salespeople at all. So to have a sales process isn't necessarily something that they're even really present to.
Yeah.
But then on the other side of that, let's be honest, most medical companies that we work with don't have a marketing process either.
True.
So now and they don't see themselves as marketers. In
Yeah.
fact, even in dentistry, which we've worked with a lot of dentists over the years, probably a couple hundred dentists.
Yeah.
A lot of there's dentists that I still run into who say, Brandon, marketing is beneath me. Only charlatans and drug dealers market their business. And then I had to remind him that drugs sell themselves.
That's
right.
right. That's right.
Drugs, right.
You don't need to market those.
Chris Rock taught me that you don't sell drugs; drugs sell themselves. So,
That's
but
right.
in dentistry, like there's still people who can't get past like the whole marketing process. So the first thing is to really look at, what are my goals, what are my vision, and then how does sales and marketing fit within that? And then once we understand that, it's okay, how do these two things work together? Because I think for companies that are more established who have sales and marketing, what's really easy to forget about is how those things work together. How does marketing support sales, especially when you start to get two different sets of people who are in charge of
Yeah.
those processes? Now it's like, how do we bridge the gap to get them to work together and really come up with a cohesive strategy so that marketing is serving sales, sales is serving marketing. And then, I mean, really the ultimate marketing and sales piece is how does that fulfillment happen? And so it's important for sales not to overdo it in the sales process so that delivery can't happen, because then that starts to make you look bad. I mean, I think it's just really understanding how all of those things work together, and then really having a cohesive strategy of what is the experience, going back to what we talk about with total experience design. What is the experience that we want people to have? And one of the outward experiences that people experience is the marketing experience. It's the sales experience. It's the delivery. All those things are front facing experiences that we create. So how do we tie all that in together so that, marketing equals sales equals delivery, like there's a seamless message and transition throughout all three of those. And I just think that takes a little bit of intention and really kind of thinking through that, especially if you're a medical provider, to really see how all those things work and to get those groups together to talk about how they can work together better. I mean, that's my 2 cents. I mean, there's a lot that we could really explore in
Yep.
that, but just higher level, that's kind of where I would start with that conversation.
Well, and that's, I think, hitting the nail on the head, and what I think where this discussion came up a lot. I mean, we talk about experience mapping, and the idea of experience mapping, essentially, especially starting with a front end experience, is going to be in those three categories, right? You can basically take any touch point and fit it into one of those three. It's either marketing, sales, or delivery. And then of course you have all sorts of little mini stages in between, or breakdowns that happen within each of those. But then there are those transitional elements. I found this a lot when I started digging into marketing in general, and just how, we end up talking about marketing strategy you can do at all these other stages, and that's just what it comes down to. Is it's just a long, unique experience and relationship that you're having to manage, and things like marketing and sales literally apply at every stage, even throughout delivery, right? Like there's this, if you understand marketing and sales, it can make your delivery better. It can make understanding that, helps you communicate some of those other elements, better and more cohesively. And I think, especially for those that find, I mean, that's the struggle, I guess, when you say marketing and sales, especially for certain spaces and industries, or highly skilled professionals, if they've been through way too much education, or you name it, it's like there's a funky pride of like, well, those are the things you do if you're not as educated as me, right? Or if you haven't done what I've done. I've been an executive at Fortune 500 companies, therefore I don't market or sell, or whatever it might be. And now that you're a business owner, and not just an executive for the big machine, it's different. You start to recognize the need for that, or hopefully you do. I mean, that's obviously what we're talking about, is it's not always the case, right?
Yep.
But even recognizing that exists whether you like it or not. Like, I don't, marketing's beneath you. Guess what? There's marketing happening for your business. Somehow people are coming in. There's a message being transmitted, maybe not very well, and that's the reality, because it's not documented, and it's not intentional. So it's by accident. And hopefully your delivery is so good that you get that whole referral game, and that's positive and everything else, which is great. That's marketing, and it's happening whether you like it or not. But when we're more intentional about it, we can help control that message, right? We can help make sure that the right message is being delivered, and even as we get into the delivery, we know and understand more where they're coming from, what they've already heard, the questions and issues that they face. You make your delivery much tighter, right? When you understand, like, they're already educated to a certain degree, you understand their, and this is one of the beauties of like marketing in particular, is starting to really dive into like why people want a product or why they want a service. Why would they ever come to you in the first place? Much deeper than like the surface level, right? It's like, I broke a bone, I need it fixed. That's obvious. But there's, other reasons for various things, and it's not always just about like, I've got a cavity, I need it fixed. There are reasons beyond that, and understanding those things in sales, or in marketing and sales, when you dive into that, I mean, how does that transition into delivery, right? I mean, it's so much more valuable when you understand that, how you can talk and communicate with your clients and patients and customers to a much greater degree when you have some clarity around that element a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have an example of like how this goes wrong. This just happened this
Those are
week.
the best examples.
We do we do fulfillment work for a financial services firm called Wealth Factory, right? And
Yeah.
so um, earlier this week, I had someone refer a client to me who just signed up with the Wealth Factory coaching. Now, the interesting thing about this is that people come to Wealth Factory, they're not necessarily looking for business consulting. They
Mm-hmm.
don't know that there's business consulting that's involved in that. What they're really looking for is financial services. The disconnect for me became when I got this client referred to me almost right away in the process, saying what this guy really needs is business help and support.
Mm.
But I'm trying to think of it, most of the marketing is geared towards personal finance. The sales call is probably geared towards personal finance. And now we get into fulfillment, and one of the coaches recognizes that, well, personal finance isn't necessarily this guy's biggest issue, right?
Yeah.
So then I've got to circle back, and I'm like right in the middle of this process, right? So we haven't even
Yeah.
resolved this issue. This is how recent it is, where I've got to circle back and say, okay, now tell me why this guy has only done, maybe one phone call with us, and he's already ready to jump into what would really be the second phase of our work. It's like
Yeah.
way further down the road, where he would normally get involved in this, and now he's getting involved in it right away. So I'm trying to understand, like, how did we get here?
Yeah.
Is this the expectation that was sold up front? What are we trying to accomplish with this person? Did we miss something? Did we enroll someone who maybe wasn't an ideal fit? Right now, I don't know the answer to any of these questions, but this is where the disconnect, this is why it's so important to understand this, because when you have multiple players, and I think, Billy, like in medical providers, when you've got a chiropractor or a dentist or a podiatrist and they've been the only game in town in their office,
Yeah.
they don't worry about any of this stuff because they're the salesperson, they're the marketer, they're the delivery person.
Yeah.
But once you start to have other people who play different functions here, now you see where the breakdowns exist. So now I've had to spend maybe more time than I would have liked to spend figuring out and unwrapping the puzzle of why am I meeting with this person now when it seems a little premature in the process, and walk me through, like, now I've got to talk to sales to figure out, like, what did we talk to this guy about? What was his hot button issues? Now I got to talk to the other fulfillment people on the team to figure out, like, what did we miss here? I'm trying to figure out what marketing this person was exposed to,
Yeah.
and really smooth all that out. So I got a clearer picture of what this person really wants in our process, and make sure that the owners of the company that we do work with actually want us jumping in on this case much sooner than we normally would. And so all of those things come up in a really interesting way when you can see how sometimes there is a disconnect there,
Yeah.
between that process. And this doesn't mean even that the salesperson did something wrong. It doesn't mean the other fulfillment people did anything wrong. It doesn't mean the marketing team did anything wrong. But
Yeah.
somewhere along the line, we missed something in this process that maybe we should have been more attuned to, so that so that everyone on the team kind of knew better what to expect with this particular client. And when disconnects happen, it just wastes time for everyone trying to figure out, like, how do we get on the same page versus just starting on the same page
Yeah.
to begin with by communicating. So that's
Yeah.
an example of what happens when you have breakdowns.
Well, the beauty though is that you understanding that process is seeing the breakdown, right? I think the
Yeah.
unfortunate part is most don't even see the breakdown; they just
Right.
jump in. Like you just get handed the client, and you say, "All right, let's start doing our work." You don't.
Yeah.
You recognize the context, like how important that context is. And
Yep.
if you don't, and obviously sometimes those types of breakdowns can happen even in a pretty tightly run ship, right? I mean, you might
Yes.
have stuff slips through occasionally, and so it's all the more reason to understand this higher level point, right? It's not just like you do need to have that context in order to properly deliver, and you will be able to do so at a much greater degree by understanding the sales and marketing. So to write those things off like that's not what I do, I do this, it's short-sighted, right? You're shortchanging the experience you're going to deliver. And that, I think, that alone is a powerful lesson. Even if we started with that, like if you don't have a tight process right now, or this clearly defined, like, scripted whatevers, I mean, forgetting all that, just knowing that this is how this works. People come in because of particular needs and desires. There's often unspoken needs and desires in there, but something scratched the itch sufficiently for them to decide to saddle up and join and work with you. And since you know that, you can probe a little bit more to get a better picture and be able to deliver to a significantly better experience you're able to do if you can understand that much. So awesome.
Absolutely.
Cool. Well, that's I think that keeping it short and simple as far as this concept goes, is just recognize that all of us, every company, every business, small business especially, where it's the struggle. And in fact, if you want to scale, if your goal right now is to scale up beyond being the micro business or anything else, it's all the more you have to understand and recognize that you need clarity around your marketing, sales, and delivery. Like, you need that chain of events, understanding that any companies you see, taking again medical, you'll see some practices that just get massive, right? And it's because businesses that way. I mean, here in Utah we have several. I would consider that, and not even talking about all their business practices because I don't work with them directly, but talk about someone like Hoops Vision, or someone they just get to a degree, a size that is so much more significant. And it's part of it is when there's like a trigger when they realized that these other phases, exist and how important they are. And by doing that, all of a sudden, I mean, the floodgates can open, you know what I mean? It's, if that's your goal, because those things exist, but it is critical to understand in order to move forward. So just knowing that, we can immediately start to deliver to a greater degree, and then start to define what those things look like, including the sales, because that's often the one that's most easily overlooked for lots of businesses. Is it isn't just market, and then they show up and buy from you. Sometimes there is a transitional period. Sometimes it takes a few phone calls or a bit more information or whatever it is, and recognizing that and those transitions, right? Like once they become a customer, they're not just like loyal to you, especially in the first, well, it's like the first 90 days or whatever, right? Is kind of the typical thing we'll say, right?
Yeah.
They're not immediately loyal and deeply committed, even if they've paid you money. It's like they're still like a wooing. I still consider that part of the sale, frankly, is the onboarding process, and what that looks like, whether it be first uses of a tool or product or software, or actually services that are delivered. Just those initial handful of experiences with it are a critical like onboarding sales, component even after the purchase happens. So,
yeah, for sure.
Excellent. Any other thoughts or anything else you want to add to that mess there?
No, I mean, you brought up scalability. I think that's so important. If you want to scale, you can't be head of sales, head of marketing, head of delivery. At some point in time, you're going to have to delegate all three of those for significant scalability to happen. And that's just, it goes back to planning and creating a plan for really doing that. So I think it's a good point.
Awesome. Cool. Well, let's see if there are any questions. Once again, feel free to throw them in the mix, especially around any of these topics, but something else that's got you thinking, throw it down, and we'll definitely talk about it here. And by the way, there is a lag, so if you do post something, I might, take me a minute or two to see it, because when I'm talking, you're not hearing me for a minute or so. But regardless, feel free to do that. All right. So going from that, let's dive into the recommendations of the week. How's that sound?
Absolutely, I love it.
And you, my friend, get to kick us off. What's your recommendation of the week?
Okay. So recommendation, I have a webinar that I'm doing on Tuesday. This is a very self-serving recommendation. We're calling it the 6 Keys to Giving the World Your Best Work. So this was really predicated upon a client who was asking me about time management and workflow and things like that. And so I kind of started working through the system, and then I just thought, I've been really hesitant to put together like, okay, this is how I do it, because productivity is so unique to people. But I just figured I would create kind of a model, so to speak, that people can utilize to really help them get their arms wrapped around their own personal productivity. So if you have the opportunity to check that out, go check it out. If you want to be added to our BAM group, and you don't have access right now to the webinars that we do, so you can go back and look at them if you can't attend live, let us know, because we'll do that. Drop us a comment here. You can message us at Facebook. We're on Instagram. We're on Twitter, YouTube, you name it. Go check that out.
TikTok.
Also, go check out.
I don't know actually if we're on TikTok, but
we're not on TikTok. And you know what? I have TikTok on my phone because my kids use it. But, I feel like TikTok is for younger people, and it just feels weird.
You're not cool
to
enough
be on TikTok. Now, if my
yet.
kids want me to do a TikTok with them, you guys have seen me post videos of me doing TikToks with my kids. I'll do a TikTok, but I think if you're a grown person and you have a TikTok account, I just don't know. And it's weird. I think it's weird, honestly, that you brought this up, because now you're going to bring up like a rant. But I think it's weird when people just jump on the bandwagon of social media just so they can try to acquire customers. It's like all these businesses on TikTok. It's like, look, unless you market to kids, why the hell are you using TikTok? Like grown-ass people don't use TikTok. They are on, more mature, platforms like Twitter, right? Because everyone's really mature on Twitter.
That's right. That's right.
So, we use more distinguished and refined social media platforms and outlets, you know what I'm saying? So, TikTok is a weird deal. But check us out. We're going at noon on Tuesday, Mountain Standard Time. or Mountain Daylight Time, I guess is what we're in right now.
Yeah. Okay.
And so go and check that out. I think it's going to be a really good webinar. I mean, I put a lot of work into the action guide that's going to go along with it. And we're going to put together a really nice presentation to really help with personal productivity and to really uncover like the one area that I think people miss the most, that it doesn't matter what system that you use. If you don't address this one thing, you're going to miss completely the productivity system that you need to implement, because you're not addressing some real deep-seated productivity issues at the root cause. We're going to get into that on Tuesday. So
nice.
make sure you check that out.
Now you got me excited. I guess I'll even
There you
watch.
go. There you go.
Right on. Excellent. Yeah, so if you request that access, we will, even in the comments after the fact, watching the recording, we'll make sure and we can get you on the list or talk about it and make sure you have access, even if you're not working with us in heavier capacity. We're happy to connect the dots a little bit there. Awesome. All right, well, my recommendation does come in the form of a book, although it's not a typical book. This book right here.
Oh, yeah, that's good.
Value Proposition Design. So if you're familiar at all, so Alex Osterwalder is one of the ones on this one, and he kind of was made famous by the business model Canvas. You're familiar with that? But this was his, I guess, kind of the second piece in that pie. But excellent. In fact, I like this a lot more than business model Canvas, significantly more personally. This, I think, it feels so much more universally applicable and a little bit easier to just, it just makes sense. So one of the pieces in here that he introduces a new canvas, which I guess is I don't know what it's entirely called, Value Proposition Canvas. I don't know, but I will throw this out there as well. The picture there. So you've got your customer profile on one side and the value map, which is around your product, on the other side. Going through that exercise alone, I feel like it's extremely valuable to get us to focus on the right things. It's very easy to kind of become a little bit myopic when we're thinking about the values that we deliver. And it doesn't matter if it's a product, service, widget, software, you name it. It doesn't matter. It applies literally to everything, and I find it very valuable. But really getting you to focus on some of those other elements, because it's very easy to get like too into the features or the nitty gritty or the science of what we do, or there's all these elements that we tend to focus, and it usually is always on the product side of things. We don't focus enough understanding the customer side. And so, yeah, that's my recommendation. Value Proposition Design. It's obviously not like a typical read. Lots of graphical whatever in there. So it makes it a little more entertaining. Breaks up the monotony, I suppose, of just another book that we've got. But that's mine today. You've got this. Do you have this one?
I do. Yeah, it's on my desk right there. I haven't looked at it, but it's in my pile of books.
Okay. Still in its shrink wrap? I recommend it.
Well, it's not in the shrink wrap. Someone gave it to me, so I don't know.
Well, it's a good gift. Good gift.
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, excellent. With that being said, we've got those recommendations. We've got the webinar is on Tuesday, and to get in the loop on those, if you're seeing this after the Tuesday that it happens, that's okay. We definitely will have it recorded and be able to connect some dots there. Anything else you want to leave these fine folks with?
No, everyone have a great weekend. Man, the official summer season is upon us. So enjoy it. Make some time to not only enjoy what you're doing inside your work, but also outside of your work with your family, friends, those kinds of things. Obviously, in today's day and age, we want to be socially distant at the appropriate level too. So if your fun includes wearing a mask or being 6 feet apart from your friends, then whatever that is to you, please enjoy it.
Awesome. Well, thank you for Brandon Allen and myself, Billy Bush. This is My Business World Live, and we look forward to talking to you next time. Thanks.
All right.